Mhm. So what's good, everybody? Okay, so we'll let YouTube go ahead and throw out his signal so that way we can, vibe out and connect. So again, my name is Satori Seals, and we're going to do a soul-to-soul conversations this morning and tap into some additional insight into the relationship numerology piece. So before I get on, like I said, y'all know this. Feel free to drop some things in the chat or whatever. Those of you that are kind of aligned. If you see trollers or whatever, hop out in the chat. Just delete their stuff, and and we're going to keep it moving so that way it doesn't bring just bring negativity to the to the thread or whatever. But yeah, good morning, good morning. So like I said, we'll do that. Just all good vibes, and y'all know one of the reasons why I'm doing this. I had people ask me to start doing these again, but also I think is one of the things I want to do is help us to get or to receive additional insights or to expand our understanding from looking at relationships just from one view. There is a metaphysical or a spiritual or energetic component to relationships that actually has a lot of influence on them. And I think we're at a point right now where culture has exhausted itself in terms of overall culture about relationships by making everything being more rule based and role based or and quasi religious based. And in the day we see the results of a lot of that. There's a lot of frustrations going on, and people are seeking alternative ways to relate, but they want something that really form fits who they really are. And so this is where the insights coming from the energetic understanding, thinking outside the box, come into play. And so I've written several books to try to help contribute to this expanding of understanding our roles inside relationships. So if you definitely want to check out some of my books, you go to my Patreon. Just go to patreon.com, Living Soul, and just go to my store, and you will see series of books. Just scroll through there. But I've written a book called See Your Lover. I've written another book called Activate Your Lover, and also Relationship Battery. And just released a new one called The Psychology of Feminine Energy, and a host of other different things that kind of can help you on your journey. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get into this. So, what I want to do is talk about the relationship interplay. The relationship interplay that's revolving around the energy of me and you. Okay? Because at the end of the day, inside relationships, we are always projecting pieces of ourselves into the relationship dynamic. Okay? None of us is exempt from that. Last live, you heard me say the energy and the outcomes of the relationship is going to follow the accumulation of the projections that we have inside relationships. No relationship is going to be inseparable from the dominant projections that goes in, that creates a mix, that creates an outcome based off of what the energetic is, and then it will fold over into visible form or reality or into experience or into outcomes or into environmental setting of what that relationship is going to be. So in other words, what we are together is what's going to be manifested for us to see visibly. Okay, some people when they come together, they're more volatile. Some people come together, they're really touchy feely. When people come together, they're really flow. When people come together, they're very ambitious. It's a combination. When you and I come together, it creates and generates a certain outcome energetically that brings about things in us. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, the relationship interplay, the energy of me and you, because relationships is not separate from the individual, right? So what I want to do is not go too deep or be too expansive, but I want to revisit as you know, I do often, we talk about energy. And so we have, we talk about masculine energy, androgynous energy, and feminine energy. We all dance in and out of those energies, depending on the different scenarios or environments or situations that we're in, because the situation and environment also has an energetic component to it. It has a elemental component to it that has something that's emanating that we respond to based off of our soul profile or our own personal energetic lineup. And so this is a continual dance and a flow and in and out all the time. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of maybe simplify this and make it visible or make it at least conceptual so that we kind of can understand and see how these energies will work. So as I get into this, since I did, like I probably from I covered Candace Burris and Todd Tucker's numbers, I'll use them in an example to show, and what I want to do is show how in different scenarios in life or different areas in life, how we will take on a different gender energy. In other words, we might take on, so in a situation, when do I become masculine? Or when do I become feminine? Or when I become operate other androgynous? And then look at the position of it. When will I be dominant? When will I be submissive? Or when will I be neutral? And so that's what we're going to do today to bring this out. So I'll just kind of bring it home. Let me know if I made sense to what I just said in the chats. All right. So that way I can know that I'm not talking to myself, in these things. I want to make sure that we get something as we entertain that this morning. Okay. So as I said, so we'll start with the gender energy. All right. And we got masculine energy, androgynous energy, and feminine energy. And we know these are not roles, these are energy. Energy talks about, is referring to how we move. And so we capture these energies by understanding what they are, masculine, androgynous, and feminine. They take position, dominant, neutral, or submissive. And then with each of these gender energy positions, we begin to see they also have three elements that will be assigned to them. And we got five elements that where the three will come out of. It'll be either the earth, wood, water, metal, air, or fire. And so this begins to give us a whole for a diagnostic or a basis of an assessment from a universal principle base, okay? Not theory, based off universal principle base that works and coincides to help us to understand conceptually of the energy that's moving in through us and how we're exchanging, how we're responding to it. Okay. And so when we talk about, so inside the living soul numerology system, we use archetypes. We call them soul archetypes. And archetypes are these are your spiritual imprints. These are your spiritual narratives that's inside you that hides behind your personality, but yet it works through your personality. So I like to nickname it like the spiritual personality of us, these archetypes. And there's 9 of them. I'm not going to go over that today. Okay. Or if you want more insight, join my Patreon and become like a member on there. And thanks in advance with that. And you'll be able to get some of the insights there. But we have the soul archetypes. And so the soul archetypes really dictates the narratives. It also sets the tone for us to understand what is emanating energetically or what's oscillating energetically, right? The 1 energizes and oscillates certain energy. The 2 energizes and oscillates a certain energy. The 3 energizes and oscillates certain energy, and it goes on. And we use the number 9 to begin to try to capture all these different things and all the different experiences in life or scenarios or whatever, and get a trace of what is happening or what is going on, and so forth. Okay. Um, and so in that, so we have the archetypes, okay? Then we have the gender energy you heard me mention, masculine, androgynous, and feminine. And the gender energy really, it shows us how we generate energy and how we will create and how we will react to things, So it's like that generator, it's the engine, right? It's getting the car going and it's generating these different things. So which engine will you use? Would it be the V6, the V8, the V12, right? Or whatever. Then we got the energy positions that it takes, dominant, neutral, or submissive. And that lets us know uh, where we stand in a relationship or how we try to exert our influence. So, inside a relationship, what position are we liable to operate in? What position will we take, whether it be a dominant, neutral, or submissive? So that's it. Could be, as you know, life is situational. So in situations, we can kind of see like, oh, in this situation, you're liable to be dominant, or in this situation, you're liable to be neutral, or in this situation, you're liable to be submissive. And then we talk about the elements, what I got to mention earlier before. That's giving us insight how we think, move, feel, take risk, and so it gives a very quick snapshot on the whole essence of us in terms of what we're doing all together. And y'all know, so we got a whole relationship insight, and I got a book going to come out called the love elements, to help us to understand our relationships from the love elements and to assess what our relationships will need and what the shadows might be and stuff like that. So I'll be kind of looking forward to bringing that out, shortly. But in the meanwhile, um, so you have all this going on that's capturing energy. Okay, so what we're talking about today is the interplay. A lot of people get caught up talking about compromise inside relationships. I always like to say it's not about compromise, it's about interplay. It's so when we talk about interplay, now we're challenging each other to look at what is our skill set, what is our mastery to move in or out, right? How do I counterbalance the energy in these situations that's driving behind my personality, driving behind how I react to things? Um, okay. So all these things begins to work. So inside a relationship, based off of you and I's soul profile, right? Our energy profile, we bring things to each other, and when we come together, we create an energy field, and we begin to operate in that. And in different situations, you know, we begin to operate in a certain way. We might operate more in the masculine, androgynous, or the feminine. We might take certain positions, or certain elements might become more strong and dominant in a situation. Our earth wood might become strong, our water might become strong, our metal might become strong, and so on and so forth. So to really make this sense, so we talk about masculine energy is motion based. Motion based. It's about movement. That's move forward. So that's why you see it. Masculine energy is going to try to move in direction to clarify things, to set boundaries, and to assert itself, right? And to provide structure. Excuse me. We talk about the androgynous. The androgynous likes to flow. It wants to integrate. It wants to harmonize, and it wants to be adaptable, and it wants to read the environment. Okay. The feminine is, wants to receive. It wants to connect or bond. It wants to create. It wants to nurture or to grow things. Okay. It wants to desire. All right. And so, and the feminine moves in a direction of connecting. So the masculine energy is about bonding, right? Feminine energy is about bonding. The masculine energy is about motion. And the androgynous energy is really about adapting. So think about, these are different directions that the relationship is going to move in. So there's one aspect of all of us where we're motion based. So the question is, what area in life or what situations will I become motion based? Okay. Yeah, some of y'all that's on here, can you like knock out and delete some of the dumb stuff that's coming in the it's coming in the thread or whatever. Okay. So inside the relationship, we might become more motion based, masculine. Inside the relationship, we might become more connective based, feminine. Inside the relationship, we might become more adaptable based, androgynous. Okay. And then situation in life will determine when we'll kind of operate in that. Now, to even go deeper, we start to figure out what position in reference, in association with the masculine, androgynous, or feminine that we will take. Okay. So again, just to bring it even more clear, like I said, So we talk about the androgynous energy. The androgynous energy likes to read the environment, likes to flow. It wants to harmonize. It wants to integrate, right? It's adaptive. It's adaptability based. The feminine wants to receive, create, to nurture, to grow. Desire is connection based. The masculine wants to lead, serve as well. Um, Give direction, right? To take risk. That's masculine direction. Okay. Now, I'm going to use to bring to give us understanding. I'm going to use the example from Candy Burris and Todd's Tucker. Use their numbers, but I'm gonna focus on the aspect of relationship and their sense of stability, which means that I'm going to look at their numbers from their Earth alignment and see how they will respond in these three different areas: in the areas of wellness, the areas of relationship, and the area of acquisition and communication. Okay. So I'm gonna look at these three different areas right here, and I'm gonna see where their numerology lines up at, and I'm going to kind of just translate what that is saying. I'm going to mention like what energy that they operate in. Okay. Now, together they have a very androgynous energy when they come together. So now what we're going to see is see like in certain areas which energy starts to come out. And then when we realize that, is it harmonious with each other? So, for example, in the area of wellness, are they harmonious? Are they highly productive? Are they very amped? Or are they uh, in a lot of clashing that goes on? We're able to tell that, okay, by looking at their, by looking at their scores in the area of relationship. So, how they operate in relationship, which archetype, right? Which energy, and what position that they were liable to operate from in the relationship space, and what are they seeking when they are in that space, okay? And then so on with the communication acquisition area in life, okay? And so what I'm going to do is just go down here to bring this home. So let me see what y'all got right here. Okay, you say, okay, you understand what I'm throwing down. Cool. So let me make sure I'm making sense to everybody. Am I making sense what I just explained here just now? So I want to make sure that you captured that. So as I kind of just break this part down and bring it home, some understanding hopefully can be derived from this. Okay, so just let me know in the chat. Okay, so in the area of wellness, all right, and so what begins to happen, so some of you are more versed inside the living soul. Candy's going to come from the space of the 5, and then Todd's coming from the space of the 2. And so what happens is we begin to I'm looking at their soul matrix, okay, and it's let me know how they pretty much react, behave, um, how to behave, and how they move, and how they might think, and what they might seek, and which aspect of their soul they're operating from. Okay, and so this gives us some of this insight. So in the area of wellness, when we talk about wellness, I like to always talk about wellness. We know health is an aspect of it, but it also is what's the culture you build for yourself for your well-being, for you to feel good, right? For you to to sustain yourself, right? Nutrition, working out, um, just a lot of things that contribute to the wellness of you. So we're looking at the wellness. And so Candy, when she's operating in the wellness focus, in the wellness area of life, Candace becomes a very nurturing person. She comes from the very nurturing nature. She thinks and moves from the one. Okay. And so that is a feminine submissive. So Candy in the area of wellness is feminine and is submissive. So remember I mentioned about feminine is desirous. It wants to grow. It wants to nurture, right? It wants to connect. So her orientation under wellness, she's going to seek the aspects going to help her grow. So if she sees it's going to help her grow, and not just her, because she's not selfish in this a particular space. She's actually very submissive. She's very supportive. So Candy probably won't. She probably likes to do workouts, but she would need. She wants to feel like she's in support. For example, she might um, go work out in a setting like I want to support this person that does this. So I'm gonna go. This is gonna motivate me to work out, right? Or she sees, she is. It's got to be a supportive nature to it. Um, she's going to, like I said, she's going to, and she and then she's mindful of what she's able to receive. Okay, so in that, and it's also very heightened. So she's very, like I said, it's a value to her. But in order to get her to feel motivated and to stay locked in, she definitely needs a supportive environment. So long as she feels like she has a supportive environment in the area of wellness, you'll see, Candace's gonna be very comfortable, and you're gonna see her really, you're gonna see her level of motivation to increase. But when she's entering into the wellness orientation, she's coming from this aspect of the feminine energy in a submissive position. Okay, and so in that, she brings a lot of fire to that, so it's a lot of motivation, and she wants to see results. So that's one thing. So if she cannot see the results, then she's going to find herself get what demotivated, because there's a lot of fire that she's coming from in that space. Okay, um, so now Todd in the area of wellness, right? And wellness also deals with decision making that benefits yourself as well too. I want to add that in there. Healthy thinking. Okay. Um, Todd comes in as a 7, which is a masculine dominant energy. So, and he comes from the intellect, and Candy comes from the emotion. So, in the area of wellness, their their aspect of their soul, they're coming from different pieces of themselves. Candace is coming from emotion, and Todd's coming from the intellect. So wellness has to feel a way to Candace, and then wellness has to, you know, feed what he knows. Right? He's coming from the intellect. All right. So now, interesting question is, do they conflict with each other under the area of wellness? Yes, they do. Um, Todd, in reference to Candace, they there's a polarity that manifests there. So that even could be for the good, bad. But so there's opposition because Todd approaches wellness from an intellectual space, and Candy operates approaches wellness from an emotional space. And then in reverse, Candace is in conflict. She's bothered. She's in tension with Todd when you look at her one in relationship to the 7. So in the area of wellness, Todd and Candace really collides strongly in the area of wellness. So they probably just, they just got they're just totally indifferent in the area of wellness. So probably in a relationship, when you look at healthy decision making and things like that, it's probably tumultuous, right? It's probably, it's definitely chaotic. It's a lot of conflicting things that's liable to generate, um, you know, inside the area of wellness space. So when it comes down to like, what's your approach to our wellness of ourselves? What's your approach to making consistent, healthy decision making? They're coming from totally two different space, and it doesn't mix too well. Okay, just in this example. I can go a little bit deeper, but I'm just kind of keeping on the surface level. So if it kind of sounds like I'm not giving direct insights with it, that's the reason why. Okay, but the point I want to make is that in the area of wellness, Candy comes from a feminine space, a feminine submissive space, and Todd comes from a masculine dominant space. So in that, Todd wants to what? Assert himself more. He wants to take lead in the area of wellness. He wants to lead the charge, and he might not be too mindful if anyone else is involved. He wants to move and give direction. He wants to give structure. So now we go into the masculine part. The masculine wants to bring structure, wants to bring clarity, and he wants to assert and stay in direction. Candy wants to build an environment to facilitate growth. So any different angles you can look at it. She wants to, so what I'm saying is when they both approach the wellness space, they're approaching it differently. Ty wants to give structure there. He wants to assert. He wants to lead. My way is the direction that we're going. Wants to give clear direction. Wants things to be like boom, 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 boom. He's either willing to take risk or be risky in the area of wellness. Candy, it wants to build a supportive environment. She views wellness in a supportive way. She wants to build or create an environment. She wants to maintain the environment to maintain the wellness, right? So she's going to think more circular and Todd's going to think more linear. So Candy is going to be thinking about the collective impact and the connections that's required to keep it. Todd's not concerned with that. And that creates their conflict. Okay? Let me know what y'all think about that. Then we talk about the area of them relating. Okay? In the relating part, in the relationship part, Candy approaches the relationship piece from the 5. So she values selflessness. She wants to bring selflessness to the relationship. She wants to make sure things are mirroring, what the values are. Candy wants to bring balance into the space. She wants things to be very, she just wants to she wants to bring this level, but she also brings a level of a drive, a self-determination to advocate the things that she's passionate about. Okay. But she really wants to make sure there's a balance. She really wants to make sure things are selfless. So she doesn't enter a relationship space from a selfish intent. Todd approaches in a relationship, he comes from the 2. So he's kind of take on the feminine role, So I'm sorry, scratch back to Candace, the 5 is androgynous. So she approaches a relationship from an androgynous space in a neutral position. Okay. Todd's going to approach it from a feminine space in a dominant position. So again, we see in the wellness, Todd wants to be dominant, right? And then, hold on, I'm sorry, y'all. Correction. Todd, yes, I was right. Todd wants to, so he takes on the masculine dominant, and the 2 is the feminine dominant. And so in these areas of wellness and relationships, Todd really wants to lead. His behavior is very assertive. Interesting, Candace is more neutral, okay, and more supportive in the wellness and relationship space. So 2 different angles, 2 different approaches. Now, does it collide with each other? Well, let's take a look, right? Well, Candy with Todd, there's some tension there with her approach to relationships. Okay. Todd, when we look at it, he's not too bothered by Canada. He's just in his position. He just wants to be dominant. But from Candace's end, she has opposition. She has conflict with Todd, but Todd doesn't really have conflict with her as long as he's getting his way. In other words, as long as he's able to what dictate the direction. Um, Now the thing is, Candace is flexible because she has a neutral position, so she's not too caught up in the power shifting. But Todd might exude a power orientation that he desires to have. So inside relationships, Todd wants to be the power holder more than Candace. Okay. And so now, what do they seek inside the relationship space? Candace, um, Candace actually seeks for things um, to match. She's making sure things flow and coincide with each other. She wants to make sure are we aligned, right? She's more concerned with congruency, right? Todd is actually looking for variety. So in relationships, he has his sensory aspect of himself really desiring a variety of certain experiences. Now, which area that might manifest, can know, but now, since they're very public, we all can kind of already probably go and look at some things and already see where that variety shows up and manifests that in their behavior and what they do. But Todd does pursue variety inside relationships. Okay. And Candy really pursues, you know, an image. And so she's looking for a reflection. So it has to look a certain way. So Candy is more caught up in the image aspect of a relationship, what it looks. She's pursuing the image, the looks, but she's looking to see how it matches or how they match each other. Todd is looking for variety. Okay. And he's looking for, you know, because that contributes to, just the growth aspect or expansion, whatever, or his senses needs to be stimulated in a variety of ways inside relationships. Okay, so then we look at what they're trying to acquire together and their communication style. Candace is in the 8, and that's a masculine. That's a masculine submissive. And then Todd becomes the 5, and he becomes androgynous. So Candy in the area of acquisition, like business and networking and things like that, Candy is in a masculine and submissive. So she's probably great at networking, making things happen, establishing contracts, making sure deals, trying to stay on top of the new innovative, and she becomes very communicative as well too. So she's coming from her social aspect of herself. And Todd is really coming from the image aspect of himself, his self-image and making sure things. So in the area of acquisition, Todd's really looking for balance. He's not looking for he's not he just wants to make sure everything is just balanced, right? He's not too caught up in the profitability. Other thing, I'm not saying that he's not. I'm just saying it's his mindset is more circular in that area versus Candy, which is more like it's very targeted. I'm gonna make this money. I'm gonna get this bread. I'm gonna establish this connection here to here to make this happen. She's very inside her social aspect, which is very masculine. Okay. So she becomes very masculine in the areas of acquisition and pursuing wealth and all that kind of stuff. Todd is more androgynous. He's gonna kind of go with the flow. So what he's gonna do is look at, he likes opportunities, but he's gonna make sure the opportunities kind of match, you know, where he sees picture wise and image wise suiting, and then he's more motivated to make it happen. And then when he does, he's very self-determined. So he has a very strong self-determination. So it's not like he's not trying to get after it. He does, he's just going to pursue it a lot differently. He's not, he's really going to move in a different way. He's looking more to create an environmental effect. There you go. More like atmosphere, like, okay, let me get, if I get a truck, he wants to get a fleet. Because like I want to impact this region. I want to impact this area. I want my impression to be known. Uh, my impression to be known about how I'm moving, and he'll move it that way. where where Candy is going to, she's going to, hey, we're going to make this contract, we're going to make this happen. So their philosophies do conflict here, which is interesting. Now, you remember in the last episode I talked about Candy and Todd. They their scores show that they would have a an active shadow field. So we know in a relationship they really pull a lot from their shadows. And these three different areas of life for them right here: wellness, relationships, and acquisition. Um, we see that they really conflict in these three different areas right here in terms of what drives them, in terms of how they bounce in and out of the masculine, androgynous, and feminine positions in those areas of life. And that's what I kind of want to bring out today is that inside relationships, when we come together in different areas of life, we will take on. That's what I'm talking about. It's about interplay. So, for example, so if Candy in the area of wellness comes in the feminine submissive, and then Todd comes in the masculine dominance, and they're conflicting with each other in both different ways in that sequence, then what's their skill set to interplay? How do they adapt? Right? How can they adjust to flow? Now, in the area of wellness, more than likely, Candace will probably just flow with Todd because he's coming from the dominant. She has a submissive, so she's she can go ahead and support as long as it feels good. So long as Todd communicates to Candy in area of wellness that it feels to her, um, then she'll go with the flow. But if it doesn't feel good, then they're going to be so in their communication in that area to lessen the conflict because they are in conflict. So Todd will have to, since he wants to take lead, he would have to, in this scenario, speak to the feelings all around the area of wellness. She's not coming from a logical space, even though he is. So he has to get out of his logic and get more into the emotional communication, speak more about feeling and showing how the growth and and all that to help her to connect and bond with it. In the area of our relationships, Todd wants to be dominant there again, and Candy's more neutral, so she more likely will flow in a direction to Todd's suggestions or whatever. But Todd also has a very matriarchal mindset. Like the old grandmas back in the day in the South, just want to bring all the family together. So Todd has that aspect to him. He has a maternal. I'm not saying he is maternal. I'm just saying he has that understanding to keep things connected in the family. He has a strong family consciousness. He cares about the togetherness. Okay, and so when you compare it to Candace, who has more of an androgynous take inside the relationship in neutral, so their communication be a little bit easier here because Candy is more adaptable, right? And all that Todd has to do has to speak to the picture. If the picture makes sense, then Candy can kind of just rock and flow with that direction. So we notice in the area of wellness, Todd would have to speak to her emotionally for her to bond. In the area of a relationship, Todd still wants to lead based off their numbers. He would have to speak to the picture, the image. And if the image matches how Candy identifies with, then she will kind of go ahead and flow because she's an androgynous in this area. She'll just adapt and go with the flow. Now, in the area of acquisitions and finance or wealth accumulation and stuff like that, Candy takes on the masculine and Todd takes on the androgynous. So in this case, Candy really wants to take lead. She wants to provide structure. She wants to initiate. She wants to take risk. But thing is, she's also mindful of the collective impact too, because it's a masculine submissive. So it's not all caught up inside itself. It is thinking about how to serve a certain outcome more than just herself. Okay. And so for Todd, he's androgynous neutral. So more than likely, he'll go with the flow in the direction of Candy in the area of acquisition. So probably businesses they got going on, all that kind of stuff. Candy looks like she's the top dog, but she's not the top dog in other different areas of life, right? And say vice versa, and Todd's not the top dog in certain areas in life. There's an interplay that occurs if they operate from a healthy space of understanding each other. So what I'm getting at is that just because Todd quote unquote is a man don't mean he's all leading in everything. That's not true. When we look at energetics. And the same thing is Candy's not all submissive or all receiving and all supportive in different areas of life. That's not true. That's not really the makeup. Situations brings out different things in us, and then also look at our collaboration together that brings out things in us that determines how we will operate in certain situations. And so, and depending on the energy that we take on or fall up under, um, you know, it really gets us to um, understand how we're operating, how we're flowing. So the bottom line is that inside a relationship between me and you, we're projecting ourselves in different areas in life, whether it's in wellness, whether it's dealing with trying to, the finances, or whether it's dealing with the relationship focus. We will take on either masculine, androgynous, or feminine, right? And and based on that individually, and depending on what the other individual is, we'll see like what is that when it comes together. Is there tension being created, or is there more harmony going to be generated? And if so, which direction will the person flow? Instead, like I just gave an example of. So this goes on all the time inside relationships. So I want to bring that out, bring that understanding right there. Um, so some of you this might be different to understand. If you really want to get more insight, like I said, and get better understanding, you need to really get inside and join me inside the Patreon. If you want personal understanding, inside the description, click the link and you can get uh, uh, a relationship numerology report, and we can set up a time to go over that, which you can see what your numbers are and get more personal understanding about your numbers with your lover, or even if you just you might have a breakup and you want some resolution and some closure and understand where the conflict might have came in at and everything. I also could provide that for the numbers as well for you too. So again, you just look in the description and click on that. If you want to really expand your understanding and knowledge, I highly suggest you get Relationship Battery, my book. You go to Patreon, Patreon Living Soul, and go to the shop and grab that. And also get the book, which is fairly fresh and was released not too long ago, Activate Your Lover. It gives you insight there too. And then also See Your Lover. Okay, so those three books, and I got another one coming out, you know, pretty soon as well too, showing you how the love elements shape our relationship, and it can help you actually assess your current or past relationships and stuff, with that. So there's a lot of different tools that we got in place, but just go ahead and join us. Subscribe, become a member inside Patreon, become a Soul Vibe member, and you'll get access to a whole audio library and another content inside there to kind of help bring you up to speed to get a variety of different understanding about different things, especially in the area of relationship numerology. I'm going to continue to begin to bring some things out. There's actually some things on my YouTube video in the past that I've done a couple years ago that you might find as well too in there. So as I close out, let me look at some of the, what can I see? So someone said, can I, about the relationship? Yeah, just click the description link and we can kind of go from there if you're serious. Um, okay. So it looked like we have there. Y'all go ahead and share this to those so that way YouTube knows that people appreciate this type of content, and it helps support the algorithm and it helps support this. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube page, feel free to subscribe so you get notifications. When I come in and do lives on these Soul to Soul conversations, so you can check it out. And I appreciate everybody hopping on. And again, we'll touch back down. And what I was covering today was talking about relationship interplay, the energy of me and you, and I was really centering around the masculine, androgynous, and feminine energy, and how different areas in relationships, how that will show up how we'll take different positions in different areas. All right. So this will be posted after YouTube uploads it up like that and everything. But in the meanwhile, y'all be easy. One love.